Welcome to our podcast. I'm host Kaylee Cardoza with co-host Carrie Camacho. Our guest today is Priyanka Hedge. She is a successful software engineer who moved to the United States from India and has incredible insights and advice on how to become a software engineer, how to move up in your career as a woman, things to consider when questioning whether to have children and how to manage that with a career, and also just great life advice. We hope you enjoy the podcast. Beginning, where were you born?
So I grew up in India, and specifically Mumbai. So for folks, I think mostly everybody knows, but Mumbai is like a really big city. So I was super fortunate that I get to live and grow up in a big city. Um, and I've been in Mumbai for in 22 years. So did all my schooling. Was lived with my parents until I was 22, and had a very sheltered and a very privileged life. I am the only child, so I did not have to deal with siblings and um, did not have to share things. So it was a I think I had a very happy childhood. And then I moved to the US to do my master's. So that happened in 2015. And I did my master's for 2 years at the University of Massachusetts Amherst in computer engineering. And from there, I got a job in Seattle, worked at Intel as a software engineer first, and then during COVID, I moved to Microsoft. So I've been in the Seattle area up until now.
Did your parents go to college? Were they professionally educated? What did they do?
So my parents were educated, but not in tech. So they did more on the finance side and arts. So I think in my parents' generation, all of their siblings never really got into the tech side of things because that was way out of their reach. So I was fortunate enough that I had that opportunity.
Out of reach, is it expensive to study that? Okay.
I think expensive, and also it was not something that was super common back in their
Right.
time.
Yeah.
It was more like get into like a family business. And my mom, even though she was educated, she was a homemaker. So there were very limited options. And I think she comes from a very different generation where there were a lot of restrictions on what she can do. So I think that also played a role.
Growing up in, younger years, 12, 13, do you remember thinking about how boys can do things that you couldn't do, or were your parents really good at kind of talking to you about that? Or what do you kind of remember around, when you were younger, just thinking about being a girl and the differences between girls and boys?
So I think there was definitely a difference. Because I was the only child and the only girl child. In Indian, not most, I don't want to generalize, but it's usually preferred to have a boy because he would take care of things. And I would have cousins, and I would somehow be not. I think I would internally compare the treatment that they were given and I was given. I think for them the bar was always high, that oh, you need to have like this cushy job. And that was the standard set for them. But or my like my other like my cousins, it was like, okay, you can just like just make sure that you get a job, finish your education, and you'd have to work on starting your family and taking care of your kids. So it came from a good place. But I think I remember being very inquisitive, and I would ask questions like, why is this, why is there a difference, like why can't I do these things, or why don't I have these opportunities? And um I would like, I think I would have this dialogue with my mom, and she would explain that, hey, like, there are things that, how our society is, and there are some things that we abide by. And I think I was very fortunate that there were things that she did to make sure that I didn't have to, abide by, because she faced the brunt of it. But I definitely didn't want to fit into a mold that I'm supposed to just get a job so that I can sustain myself, and then my life is about supporting my family, and that's about it. So it's evolved, definitely evolved, but that's what I remember. And there would be moments where I would see, like, my elder brother would get congratulated that, oh, you've come first in class, and um you are doing so well. And he was older, so he would, like, he started working, and he worked in, a sales job, and he was doing so well. And I would always ask myself that, okay, like, what do I do, like, how do I get that? I don't want to just be in the sidelines. I want that for myself, where I'm proud to tell, my family that, hey, I did not, just take up a job so that I'm just like killing time until I have another person and getting married and taking
Right.
care of me. So I think it was internal mostly.
Yeah, I really hear that. It sounds like you have a lot of internal motivation and like you had support from your family, which I think is, really important. And when you're a young,
Yeah.
especially a young female, like it really helps to have the support of your parents and to feel like you're doing the right thing. But also, it ultimately comes down to your own motivation sometimes. And especially on those like long nights of studying and stuff, it's like you have to want to do that
Yeah.
and want to and like see the goal at the end. And it sounds like you really just really had a strong drive and have a
Yeah.
strong drive.
I think that that's a very big part of who I am. I think that even though today I've accomplished most of the things that I dreamt about as a kid, but it still doesn't feel enough, and I still feel like, oh, I can do better. And I think I was fortunate. I had a mother who um, really had to fight against things so that I get opportunities that she was denied. And she was ambitious and driven, even though, like, she couldn't apply that. And I think I got a lot of that from her.
It sounds like your mom is a very exemplary woman as well.
Yeah. We want to meet your mom.
I know. I know.
Yeah, she would be super happy.
Yeah.
When you were younger, and we won't stay stuck on you being young, but I always think it's fascinating on how it relates to who we are today. Um, do you remember thinking about yourself in the future? And did you imagine getting married and having kids? Did you imagine, a great job in a corporate office, making a lot of money? Kind of what did you dream about when you were a young girl?
Um, I always assumed, and I think just from because of where I come from, I assumed that marriage and children is something that, will just happen. And I always dreamt about, doing really well, like working in a big company, uh, and affording things, and that I wouldn't have been able to when I was younger, or going on vacations and living by myself in a big city, and having my own set of friends. I think I always wanted that for myself. Like, I remember having this conversation as a kid, where I was telling my mom that I need to travel. I need to work on something that I feel is changing, because I felt like I was good in, like, math and science, and I thought, okay, you know what, I want to apply and do something where I feel I'm making an impact, and I wanted to do these things before I settled down. So I never had grand plans about, having a family. Like it was there, of course, but I think it was more on the job uh, front, that I want to be this at this level and at this age. So yeah.
You had a lot that you wanted to get done before, you kind of felt like, okay, I need to go live my life and do all of these things, that I just have this internal drive to do these other things before getting married. And did you think you needed to do that before you got married because you saw all the women around you who were moms didn't get to do much once they had kids?
Yes, definitely. I did see, or at least from what I saw around me, there were not a lot of working moms. And I always wanted to make sure that if I did have to ever fit into that mold, I uh, I would have done my, like, whatever I wanted to. I feel like as much like as long as I think it's been some time and I have seen like relationships evolve and how things are. I've realized that no matter how accomplished you are, when you do get married or have kids, it does take a backseat for a bit, right? I think that I was aware of the emotional burden that women have to carry as much as you have like a supportive partner. And I think that I felt at that point that I had to do all these things before I had to step back. So I think that's where most of it comes from.
Academically, was school easy for you when you were younger? Was it something that you enjoyed?
It was not easy per se, but I was pretty good academically, but I worked super, super hard. I think there was a lot of pressure, even from my mom specifically. She wanted me to really excel in my academics so that I would have better opportunities. Did you come first in class? Or and I think just in general in India, there's a lot of emphasis on your academics. So that was a lot of pressure. So I didn't enjoy it per se, but I think I just really adapted and I was good at taking that pressure and channelizing it. So I could like spend hours studying and staying up late at night. So I would always be among the top like students of the class. And I think after a while that just felt natural. And that's what I built the rest of my academics on.
It has a lot to do with it. That's a big part of, your environment has a huge effect. And it sounds like your mom had a substantial impact on who you are today.
Yeah.
Um, but it was your drive that got you to where you were. And you wouldn't be here, sitting in the situation that you're in if it wasn't for your work ethic.
Yep, I think definitely. I think just in general, back in India, because everybody is prepped for an environment like this where, oh, you have to be like really competitive, or so I think that was what I was so used to looking around me. So it felt like, oh, like, isn't this what everybody is doing? So I think that really helped. I think make the drive, like, I think made the drive more intense, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like looking back, I mean, I think that like I did pretty well in high school and stuff. And I remember when I was applying to colleges, I was like, wow, like I have a lot of options here. And um, I'm assuming you had the same, doing really well academically and stuff. And even though there was pressure as a young teenager and in your like primary and secondary school, like looking back, are you glad that you had that pressure so that you had those like world of opportunities that were available to you?
Definitely. I think that when I look back, I appreciate the environment. Of course, like sometimes I do think of it as, oh, this was a little too much pressure. And like sometimes it just gave me like bad coping mechanisms, which I had to undo as an adult, and I'm still working on it, right? And I think one, like, among all the good things that it gave me, like opportunities, great, like I would get good interviews from like big companies, and like good schools. But I think there was also this whole, my academics or work became my identity. So I think decoupling myself from that was another task that I had to do as an adult, when I realized that, hey, I'm not just like a grade on a paper.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think, I wish that was something that I was taught. And I have to remind myself every day, it's okay, it's just a job. It doesn't define who I am. I think that, yeah, so basically that's it. I think it's the good and the bad. Like, I don't regret it. If I would have to choose it again, I would do it again. I would just do it slightly different.
I think that's something that a lot of parents struggle with. I never really thought about it till I became a mom, that, you know, you want your kids, like my daughter's still very young, but I look at her and say, oh my gosh, she literally has the entire world available to her right now. And I can see how it can, now looking at it from a totally different perspective, that it can be a challenge as a parent to balance that, wanting your kid to succeed and have opportunity, and making sure that they have all those open doors, and then and putting too much pressure to where it's you know, can become, you know, like you said, hard to cope, and it can almost, you know, cripple a little bit. So I think that's a, it's a hard balance to reach.
Yeah. I think that knowing this, I think I still struggle with it. So I think I have reached that point where I understand what my parents have gone through, because sometimes you have discussions with friends and you talk about, oh, like, what would you change, growing up, something similar to what we are just discussing. And I would say, oh, like, if I have my kid, I would do X, Y, and Z. But it doesn't really happen, right? Like, these are things that the situations are different. And I think that right now I feel like, oh, I know what mistakes I shouldn't be doing, but that might not be the right thing for my kid. And in my opinion, it's right. And that's what, like, my parents were probably doing, right? There were things that were not available to them, and they tried to, make that available for me. And the path they chose is very different, and I understand. So I think that it's very tricky, and I don't think there's a right answer to this. And even when I become a parent, I think I'm going to have created a whole set of new problems. So I think I'm very cognizant of that.
It's okay. Therapy is becoming more common. So, if
It
we
is,
have
right?
kids, they can go to therapy more. It's okay.
If only it was super accessible and cheap, like subsidized, I think everybody would really benefit from a little therapy.
My employer just started offering 8 free sessions a year.
Mhm.
Which I was like, oh, 8, well, I need a lot more than that. But they connect you to someone who's affordable,
Mm.
and it's online. And so then you can continue paying to do it. And it's a lot more affordable than, like, I've gone by where I live and it's 150, $200 an hour.
Right.
Um, so yeah, companies are starting to realize the benefit. So hopefully, in the future, mental health is more accessible.
Yeah, it's good to see that some companies are starting to realize that
Mm.
there is a need for that among employees.
Right. I think that we have it available too, and I have used it in the past.
Mhm.
But I think there are a different set of challenges for me. To find a therapist who understands the socioeconomic background from where I come from,
Mhm.
because I can talk. I think half of my sessions would just be about explaining why this
Yeah.
is happening and then the problem. So
Mhm.
I think that is a challenge when you go through this network, because that is not what is considered, right? It's just like a general filtered, like, okay, you have these set of therapists. But I'm hoping there's more diversity even in this world where people from different backgrounds can have people who understand where they come from.
It adds just like different viewpoints and different, ways of looking at things. I know India has such like a rich and beautiful culture, and but I'm sure it was very different when you moved here. The culture here is just very different.
Definitely different. I think it was a cultural shock for 6 months, I think.
Mhm.
I think India is very, I think there's a lot of emphasis on families and living in communities. And I think that's something that's not, um, at least as an immigrant who's moved here, you have to create that community. You just don't land into it. And I think it's an active effort that you have to make sure that you plan things, invite friends, and make sure that things that like things that you celebrate back home, you still continue a little part of having them here. And I think also, since I went to school in New England, there were not a lot of people who looked like me. So I think just being very aware that, oh, I look different, and also I had to be very cognizant that, okay, so this is how like folks here talk about it, or this is not something you're supposed to talk about. So I think it was definitely a change. There are lots of good things too. I think that you develop a very strong sense of self when you move here, which is very hard when you're in India, because you have all these voices around you. It can be your parents and families and friends, and I think I think that was one of the best things to happen to me here. I think it got closer to who I am. And I think also growing up in Mumbai, I it wasn't too bad because we have all the things available back in Mumbai, so it wasn't like, oh, I didn't know this exists in India. And I grew up watching a lot of sitcoms and a lot of movies, so I had like pop culture references, so it wasn't like, oh my gosh, I don't know what these people are talking about. But it's definitely something I'm learning every day. Like small talk is not a thing in India. You just ask, okay, like you just start a call and you're like, oh, I want X, Y, and Z. And here, when people would ask me, like, oh, like, how's your day? How was your weekend? I'm like, why are these people asking me these questions? So, so I think it's been those things.
I learned that quickly. My roommate, my first 2 years of college, she was originally born in India, and she moved here to the United States, I think maybe 3 or 4 years before I met her in college. But it was the same thing. Like, and we became very good friends, and um, we're able to laugh about like the terminology differences and the communication differences. But yeah, it's definitely like the melding of cultures, and I think it's beautiful that you like had the courage to move halfway across the world and leave your support system behind. And like you said, like it's not just you. Even growing up in the United States and California, you do have to make your own support system, and to have the courage to come here and to do that is pretty incredible to me.
Yep. I think whenever I look back at my life, I think this has been one of the best decisions of moving out of home and taking that challenge. I think it changes who you are. It gives you that confidence that, okay, you know what, if everything goes wrong, if I have to move to the other side of the world, I will figure it out. I will make my community. I will find my place, and I'll be okay.
There you are. I was just gonna say, how did you go about like finding that community when you first moved here? Did you like mostly meet people through your classes? I know you said you came out here for your master's, or like how did you navigate that?
I think during grad school it was easier because a lot of friends from classes, and I think because we were like a small group of people, um, we kind of knew the different people in my class, and it was easier to make friends. um, but small things like, if there is a festival, inviting folks, and making sure that you put in some energy into making friends. I think, but it changed a lot when I moved to Seattle for work, because I was among very few people who were out here, and most of my friends were in California or on the East Coast. So I moved here without knowing anybody. It was 6 months of having no friends. Um, so I think that was a lot. So I had to really go out of my way, join activities, and I was really into dance. So I would, go for workshops, and see people and ask them, hey, like, do you want to hang out? Like, when have you moved here? And I was very fortunate. I used to live in a place where there were a lot of people in the same age group, and somehow all the folks who happened to move at the same time, I ended up becoming friends with them. And I think we've been friends for at least since like 2017. So I think having that network, and now it's like having a chosen family. Like, I know if anything happens, these set of friends will show up for me.
You studied software engineering. How did you make that decision to go that route with your career?
Um, I think there were a lot of things I was contemplating, um, and I think I am very artistically inclined too. So I thought, oh, why don't I, pursue a career there? I'm very surprised with sometimes the foresight I've had as a kid. Then I'm like, okay, like, I like it, but does it actually have to be a job? Can it be a hobby? And I had cousins who've studied computer engineering, and just talking to them, and the kind of jobs they did, and I said, hey, like, I'm good uh, in like coding, and that's some. I think I'm very inquisitive, so when I found computer engineering pretty fascinating, I'm like, okay, you know what? I want to learn about this. This is so cool. And I think I also thought about it long term, that does it provide me the life that I dreamt about? Would I have the flexibility to move to different countries, even so, right? Like, there'll always be some jobs for a software engineer. The ability to work from anywhere. And I think it wasn't geographic specific, like, oh, like, I can only move to this part of the world, because I always wanted the option that once I move here and I work for a few years, if I go back, I should still be able to get a job in India. And India is really big in tech, and I think the medical field, and I wanted to do something there. And I think a big part was, I think I was good in logical reasoning, and I thought I want to work on something impactful. So I think this was the path that I chose. And Yeah, I think that's how I made that decision.
What personal characteristics from your experience today working with a lot of different people in the field make someone good at the job? Like if you're talking to a young girl and she says, I don't know if I want to do it. I don't know if it would be a good fit for me. What would be some questions that you might ask her to kind of help her figure that out?
I think a big one is problem solving. How good, or I think it's not even good, it's about how invested are you. Like, if there's a problem, do you actually want to spend your energy figuring out, okay, like, what the problem is and how to solve it? And I think that really, at least, keeps me going. I can spend like hours working on a problem, and I feel really validated, if that's the right word, after like getting the solution. I'm like, oh my gosh, I rock. And I think the sense of accomplishment, also learning new things. I think that as a software engineer, you have to constantly make sure that you are knowing what's the latest thing happening, right? Like, at least in the tech world, cloud was is still, but was like the thing at one point, and now it's all AI. So how do you adapt that? And even if that's not part of your daily job, are you like doing side projects, or are you actively working? And not because it's going to land you into company A, but it's because you want to learn it. So I think having that drive, that I want to learn all these things, or this field, I think really helps. If you're super stuck that, okay, you know what, this is it, that's it, I'm not going to learn anymore, I think that you really stagnate in a tech job. You have to be very you have to be ready to adapt.
When you decided to get your master's, kind of that's when you moved to the US, right? Was at that time. What was applying, what advice would you give someone that's at that stage? Internet, maybe specifically someone who lives international and wants to come to the US and start that process. Kind of what advice would you give them?
Um, I think that one of the biggest advice would be to actually talk to folks who live here and who have gone through that process. Because I think I have had, like, I think when I applied and I got in to a school, and I think just the different challenges and the things that you need to know, like to build your community, and adapting to living in a different country. I think a lot of people just think it's things that happen in movies, and they make that decision to move here, and you feel a sense of loneliness. I think that if you know that this is also a part, like there are good things, but there are also these other things. And I think just talking to people, asking them their experiences, I think the biggest thing that helped me was I had a lot of friends who moved here like 2 or 3 years before I did. So I would ask them, like, okay, like, tell me about your university, or what course are you doing. I think just understanding your field, like, okay, like, how is the computer science field in the US, and what are the job prospectus. And I think since COVID, things have been shaky, and especially with the layoffs, just being aware that, hey, like, what is the economic situation. um, because being on a visa, you have a time bound. Like, if I don't find a job within, say, 3 months, I would have to move back. And considering that you take a lot of loans, as international students, just being aware that, okay, what is my contingency plan? Like, if I do not get a job, what are my options? And having backups that, okay, I can move to India, and like, look, always have that network. I think creating that network before you even think about applying, I think where you need to have a reality of what life is like when you're here. And also knowing that it's hard work, and also that the way the education system in India is different compared to how it is in the US. So even adapting to that is something that you have to know that, hey, this is going to happen. And you have to be really passionate about what you do for you to really excel. So I think just being very cognizant and true to yourself, that, hey, like, why am I really doing this?
Say a low income individual who doesn't know anyone who is studied in the US, and they've gotten to that point to where it's an opportunity for them, but they don't know how to make contacts. Obviously, I use LinkedIn and I'm incredibly thankful for that. That's changed my life because I didn't have any contacts and my parents didn't really have very many people to introduce me to. But internationally, or just any tips that you have, you're more technological than I am at building those contacts with good people, and trying to find, they might get bad advice. And how do they kind of navigate that? Do you have any tips in that area?
I think LinkedIn is one of my biggest saviors too. I think the I think the access to people who you would not normally talk to is amazing. I think it took me a while to understand the power of LinkedIn. And then when I finally figured it out, I think I got job interviews because I networked with people on LinkedIn who I've never spoken to, right? I think learning about that early on. So I think even if you come from a place where you don't have a lot of contacts, you will find alumni from your university who have made this transition where they have moved to the US. Finding those people and getting out of your shell and talking to them, and not only one person but multiple people. I think that every person's opinion is very it's specific to them, right? Like it might, like if they are bad, like I can talk to somebody who had a terrible experience moving here, and I should not be limited to that, right? Like I have also spoken to folks, and I think I used to talk to a lot of people. Like even if you've spoken to like your alumni once or never spoken, not to get like be held back. I think that I would feel the sense of, oh, like, what would they think? I've never spoken to them. And networking is not something that's taught, right? It's something that you just learn. So I think working on that muscle, that you don't have that support, so you need to go out and look for it. And things like going for alumni events, like even back in school, like in India, we would have like this event every year where folks who happen to be in India, like have worked in the US and are just visiting, would show up for this event. And making sure that you place yourself in these events where you actually get to interact with folks one on one, make those connections. You might not need them now, you might need them 3 years down the line, but just having just putting yourself in those positions really help.
Were there a lot of girls in your classes in college, or kind of what was that dynamic?
um, there were very few girls in class. I think that was the norm. I think even through grad school, I would see like you can, like, the difference between the ratio is so skewed. And and I think the sad part is it's skewed even when you are working at a company. So it's not like, oh, suddenly all the other women from different
I'll
different
show up.
There they are.
you know, it doesn't happen. And I think you get used to it, but it's definitely, I see that disparity. And I think also when you hit a certain age where people start thinking about having a family, I think the number starts skewing even more.
Has that been a challenge for you, being like being in a field where it's mostly men? Has that what has that dynamic been like for you?
It has been a challenge. I think being like, I think there are two women on my team. Um, I think as women, we don't promote ourselves. We don't talk about, oh, I did this, or this is my achievement for the week. I think I've always struggled with feeling, oh, like if I'm good at my job, my manager will just notice me. But I think it took me some time to realize, oh, but men don't think like this. And I think having another woman tell me that, hey, like, you are supposed to actually go into that meeting and talk about all the things that you've done and talk about yourself, I think really dramatically changed how I think about things. So if you don't have other women on your team, I would never know. I would not know what it is, to put yourself first, or um, challenges that they're facing too. um, and I think that even you're best friends with your co-workers, but you are one of the few women at the table, and the conversations are, oh, like, I played this video game, or did you see this football match? And I think I think sometimes you have to, I think you work harder so that, you are part of these conversations. Like sometimes even if you don't care about things, you're like, okay, you know what, let's just see, what are they talking about? So that you have something to talk about and not just like sitting around on the table. So I think you have to fight harder to carve a place for yourself. And there are a lot of, colleagues who are super supportive and very like mindful that, oh, like this conversation is not very inclusive, and they try to steer those conversations. But definitely it's the challenge. Like I think not having somebody where I can talk about, hey, like how do you manage your professional life, having kids or having two kids. I think not knowing that sometimes, because I get a very male perspective, and I think that there is always a lot of emotional burden that women carry with them. So I think men don't understand that aspect. So I would not know, like, okay, like how do you manage, time with your kids? Or sometimes I've even been a part of a team where the women have like three kids, and during COVID they were at home and they were just losing their mind. And I would see these women work after work hours, because they have so much to manage. And I would ask them, like, how are you doing this? And they would say, oh my gosh, just don't ask, it's a lot. So I think having somebody who you see, like, you can talk to, who's at a different phase in life, and or at least ahead of you, and not having that piece really takes away some experience, because then you have to carve that out for yourself. And it can get lonely, it can get very demotivating. But I think it is what it is now.
I know, like, just mentorship and like finding someone who can be like a mentor for you can, yeah, it can kind of like boost you ahead years and knowledge of just what to expect and how to handle different situations, or even just to be a sounding board when you think you're doing the right thing, but you're maybe not sure of yourself. And I,
Yeah.
I know mentors can be extremely valuable in that regard.
100%. I think very early on also figured out I like need to have mentors. So I've always had mentors when I started working. And I have an amazing mentor now who also works at the same company. And having those conversations with her, that like, I'm going through this, or this colleague said this, and do you think that this was too aggressive? Do you think I was being too nice? I think that's one problem that we face, where you try to be too nice, and sometimes you're in a room full of men, and just speaking up can get harder, and you feel like, oh, nobody's hearing me, I said the exact same thing what this other colleague said. So having that sounding board, like you said, and just asking this mentor that, do you think I could do something different? And I was very lucky because this person was on my team. So they could give me feedback in real time that, hey, I saw this situation, you could have, said this, or, just encouraging me. I think this mentor has been amazing. Um, she has encouraged me to do so many things. Like if I looked at a job posting and I would see that I don't have all these skills, and I would talk to her and she said, you should still apply for it. You do realize that men don't actually see if they 100% qualified for this, and they just apply, and you should. And having a woman who was also a manager, I think I get that perspective, like this is what my a female reportee would say, and this is the difference with what the male counterpart would say. So I think I would think, oh, I didn't know that I can apply to a job even though I don't like have a tick mark against everything. So just having that confidence, right? So I had to go and seek that out. And I think that it is definitely a game changer in your career if you have somebody who you look up to and they agree to mentor you, and over years, right? So they see your evolution too. I think that's definitely helped me.
If a young girl tells you that wants to be a software engineer, but she also says, I want to have 3 kids. I want to have a family. That's number one to me.
Hmm.
Um, what would you tell her? What kind of conversation would you have with her around that?
Um, I think that it's possible. It's definitely something hard to juggle. So these are just things that I think, like, I'm not a mom, but these are things that I think for myself. I think that when it comes to your professional life, I think trying to push as much as you can in your career until you have kids. I think because when you have that time to be able to, actually spend that this is my time and I'm going to, push to be, excel in this specific domain, right? Because I feel like at least when kids are younger, you would have to um, actually balance work and life. I cannot stay up all night working. So I think just preparing for that, hey, like I'm going to give as much as I can now. Um, and then, taking a step back and knowing that, your goal might take um, longer to reach because of, sacrifices you have to make. But also, if you're fortunate enough to, work in a tech company where you can afford help, then, get the help. It's okay. Um, and, rely on family and like a support system. Because I have seen like friends who have kids and they're just doing so well at their job, but also, they leaned on people. So knowing that, hey, like, you have to have that, I think definitely is possible. I mean, whenever I have a kid, I can always come back here and and give notes. But this is what I would tell somebody.
I think you hit the nail on the head because it definitely, regardless of where you are at in your career, it takes a village to raise a child. And I know for my personal situation, like it having a professional life helps my mental sanity. Um, and I think it helps me to be a better mom, but it can also, you do need to build a support system for sure. And I think that's an excellent point that you made.
Yep. And I think that also I'm hoping that when you somehow balance your work and life, it actually, would teach your kids that, okay, you know what, it's possible to have it all, at least, a sense of it. I think growing up, with a mom who was a homemaker, I think it was very difficult for me to think, oh, like my mom can work and, also spend time. So I'm hoping that when I have kids, they can see that, okay, my mom did all of this, so I can also do it. Like, of course, like, duh, that, it's very natural. And I'm hoping that I can do that. So.
In terms of your career, is there anything that you would have done differently in terms of, to provide advice or insight to a younger person?
I think definitely would have done more internships, and trying to figure out what domain I like. If software engineering is really something that I enjoy, and I think I think more people skills, at least from my perspective, about promoting for yourself. You have a lot more control than you think you do. Speaking up, and not being afraid to speak in a room full of men, you are not wrong. And you have something important to say and a very important perspective that is needed, not trying to be nice. I think we really fall short in a lot of things because, oh, like, we think, oh, this is not like, what is expected out of me. um, so breaking out of that shell, it's very hard. I think that I don't do a good job even today, but just being aware that, you have to um think like a man, I guess that is
You've said a few times, like not trying to be nice, and I've come across this in my career as well. I had a male coworker. We were talking about the difference in income between males and females, and he said it's your fault because you don't speak up. every time I go into a room to talk about my performance, I mention that I'd like a raise. Have you ever done that? And I said, no, um, I have not because I'm afraid. And about women being nice. And I know when I was raised, there was a lot of discussion about, you need to help. You need to help other people. You need to be encouraging. I remember even being told, kill them with kindness, like all of those things. And my brother was an athlete. And I feel like the communication to him was very different. You're the best, a lot more individual, you're great. Where me, I got compliments around how I supported other people and how I was on a team. Um, how do we overcome that as women? Because we're not trying to not be nice. We're just trying to be able to come sit at the table as our full self and not just support other people. We have our own opinion and our own perspective and a lot of value that we can provide that might, we might have a different opinion than everyone else at the table. How do we kind of come around that?
I think that I struggle with this too. I think I have to always tell myself, okay, you don't have to be um, super nice in this scenario. You need to get work done. And I think I've gotten this feedback from like managers who are not female. I think I've gotten this interesting advice that while you have mentors and it's good to have women mentors, it's also good to have men as mentors because you will start to think, oh, like it's okay for me to go and say this, or it's okay for me to speak up here. And I think that if you would ever have this same conversation with a male mentor, he would say, oh, like I think the niceness conversation just never happens. So you just know that, okay, like this is not on me and this is not my job to be nice. And I think also hopefully talking to other women where you can share this with. I think if we don't if we are siloed, I think you never know if it's okay, like, okay, is it okay for me to say these things? And I think actually having a sounding board in a mentor really helps me, because I asked my mentor, do you think that this is not okay? I think even like I think very interesting thing was we have like workshops at work too, where it's about women empowerment. And there was this very interesting workshop about performance, like during a performance discussions, and how should you talk to your manager. And I volunteered, like it was really hard among a group of like 500 women, and the person said, okay, so tell me, how would you talk to your manager? And I started being very nice about it and being very diplomatic, like, oh, I did this and I think that I need to, get a raise. And this person was like, okay, you know what, this doesn't work, and try to say it in a more assertive way. And that's when I realized, oh, like I am like being nice is even coming across in how I speak, and it's not coming as assertive. Like, I think I deserve this job because I did this, and I think that I'm the right person. So I think going to that workshops or going to places where these things are discussed, I think really helps you. Not everything will be helpful, but some things will stick because somebody out there knows what they're doing. um Talking to women who you look up to, like who don't like in a room full of men, they don't get scared to be at that table. And reaching out to these women and asking them, hey, like, do you have some minutes to talk? Or you don't have to talk every week, but having somebody you look up to and actually going up to them and saying, hey, I like who you are and what you do. um, can you teach me how? And even if they say no, there are so many women out there. And just having that, I think, really helps your confidence, because somebody out there who is supporting you and who's done it, and you have somebody to look out to. So yeah.
I say that a lot, even in emails. I'll put, I think that's a good idea. And I think, have we thought about this rather than just saying, what about this idea? It's always, I think, or I had this idea, or like give them an easy way to say no from the beginning.
Yes.
It's so strange that we kind of developed that way of talking.
And I think it's just so natural for us. I didn't realize it until maybe last year. I had like somebody give me feedback that when you speak, it seems like you're asking for permission. Every time you say anything, it seems like that. And I think not asking for permission and saying, I think we I think is the wrong way. We should be doing this.
Mhm.
So I think working on that muscle is something I'm actively doing. But I think I definitely see a change because it increases your self confidence. Where you're like, okay, I know what I'm saying, and this is what needs to be done. I think you need to at least fake it that I believe this is the right thing, because everybody in their own way fakes it. I think that as women, we just take longer to get there to understand, okay, everybody doesn't know what they're doing.
Mhm.
And you just have to just be more assertive.
I know coming from a healthcare background, I am by nature pretty tend to be quiet, meek. I want to be a people pleaser. I don't want to ruffle any feathers. And coming through up through nursing, like you're taught to be an advocate for your patient. And so as I, in trying to become a really good nurse, learn to advocate for my patients, I've also, I think, gotten a lot better at advocating for myself. And yeah, when I'm talking to, a surgeon or a doctor, I've learned to take the I think out of it and say, this is what's going on, this is what I need. And 99 times out of 100 they say yes, thank you, let's do that. And then if they, if it's a no, there's usually a reason. But and I had a mentor of mine that I remember, she was giving my evaluation, my yearly evaluation, and I had been a nurse for probably, I think it was at the end of my first year. And she was like, you know what you're doing. You need to stop asking for permission about everything. She's like, if you really don't know, you can ask, but she says you need to trust yourself because you know what you're doing. And that I still, probably 11 years later, remember that moment as like a turning point in my career where I decided to trust myself and that I can be confident in this. And um I think, yeah, like you said, having a mentor and just being able to kind of speak your piece, and of course in a polite and respectful way, but still in a stern, like, this is what we're doing.
Yeah, I think 100%. I think another thing was having, like, if you are in a position where you see another woman struggling, and even if they don't ask for help, bringing them up, I think that has helped. My mentor has been amazing in that sense, like being on the same team. She would say, oh, like, what about Priyanka doing this? And she would be great for this opportunity. Having another woman speak for you, when it's not like she's going to get anything out of it, but just supporting, I really appreciate that. So I'm hoping that there are a lot more women who do that for each other.
What a great precedent to set, because now you've seen the value in that, and I'm sure you'll be more than willing to pass that on when you see someone coming up behind you that maybe hasn't learned those lessons yet. And I think that is something that, I see it, that just the theme of mentorship and stuff, I think can be so important in the workplace, and especially like in your field where it is more male dominated, kind of helping other women to learn to navigate the field just like you've had help. That can just trickle down and create great things.
Yep. I think not having to reinvent the wheel takes out a lot of things from your shoulder. So you have other things to worry about. So I think definitely. Yep.
Is there anything that we haven't talked about yet that you've learned through the years in your very, high stress, constantly changing career that has helped you in managing stress? You get all these expectations, and maybe you had not a great day at work and you come home. Have you figured anything out that helps you?
I think having a routine has become the biggest, I think, has always kept me sane. When there have been insane work hours, even if I go to work out for 1 hour, it really helps to ground me. And I think just being more mindful that, okay, telling yourself that um, my job is not my entire life. I have so many different aspects that make me who I am. And, being very protective of your boundaries that, okay, this is it. This is what I'm going to give to this job because there is another 50% that I want to give to my personal life. Really has at least helped me over the years. Um, Making sure that you take time out for yourself if that means um going like doing meditation, or at least for me it's been going on hikes and just being out, taking up different activities that are not maybe related to your career, but like taking up kickboxing or learning something new. I think that just helps to divert you. I think I have taken up hobbies that when I'm there, that 1 hour in class, I am so present. I think just that gives me, I walk out of it and I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm fine. I can go back. I'm going to figure this out. Tomorrow's a new day. So I think making sure that your life doesn't revolve around one thing and you have so many other things going on.
What part of the culture in India and how you grew up do you wish we had here?
I think the sense of community,
Mhm.
I think that's a big one. I feel sometimes it's hard, especially if you're somebody who's a person of color, um, where you already know that you're coming from something completely different, so it doesn't seem welcoming sometimes. I've been very fortunate. I have met amazing people, but I think just having that sense, like if you go back in India, growing up, there are always people to help you. You like, because I think it's also different because people are a lot closer because it's denser, so you always have somebody, but you don't feel alone. And I think also having a lot of community based activities. I think because we have so many festivals, families get together, it's a lot more back in India, and I think I miss that. And I try to have that with my friends here, but um, that sense of closeness that you have, and it also, I think, stronger relationships is what really helps. When everything goes south, you at least know, okay, this network is keeping me together. So I think having that, I think would definitely change this for a lot of people.
I'm a chronic workaholic, and I was raised that way. And so I've really struggled making time for friends and to make new friends and mentors and working out, taking care of my health. I'm always, I should just work. I shouldn't, I don't need to go to the gym. I'm just going to work another couple hours. And I think you're really right in how much that helps your life, and you'll get burned out. You just don't last, and you're not as whole of a person. You're not going to be able to bring your best self to the table where it really counts. And in your personal relationships in your life, if you're exhausted and all you do is, your job 24/7, it really takes a toll on your health. And, having that dynamic of doing different things makes you more interesting. It's made me more creative. I've actually been better at my job. I come up with more solutions because I'm starting to spend time with people that maybe I wouldn't normally spend time with that have different experience. Um, and so I feel like it's really helped me. I still struggle with it. But
I think, yeah, I think just stepping out even for an hour from your regular day really gives you such a different perspective. So one of my really close friends, I go to the gym with her, and we both work in a tech job. So, we are doing the stair stepper, and we're talking about our day and things that we are going through, and just hearing it from another person that, hey, like, I'm facing something similar, or, oh, have you thought about doing this? And then you go back and you're like, okay, sure, like, I can do this. So in this way, I got my my energy because I'm with a close friend, and also I got my workout in, so endorphins, yay. So I think I look forward to that. So if I'm having a terrible day, I know that I have things that I have planned that I'm looking forward to, and help me be very present. Like, okay, this is the problem. You always have different things going on, and you will figure them out. Like, I think that's one thing I would tell my younger self. You will figure it out. Everything eventually works out, not according to what you think, but what is actually best for you. So just make sure that you have your good energy sources, your friends, and after really tough days, even if I've not worked out, having that, okay, I'm just going to go to my friend's place and talk about I'm going through this, has gotten me through a lot of things.
you get to see your parents often.
I do. I try to go every year or twice a year. Um, so I think I've been pretty good about it since I've moved here. I've always made it a priority. And also not having siblings, I do feel responsible that, hey, I need to make sure that I work, but also look after my parents.
Do you think you'll ever move back?
Um, Not right now. I don't see that happening. I think there are a lot of things that I have made for myself here that's mine, and it would be a struggle to give it up.
Have your parents come here to visit you?
They do. They have. Yeah.
What did they say? Are they just like in awe at your life and how you're living it and what you do? Or kind of what do they notice about your life?
I think they have noticed the growth that I've gone through from not participating in any of the household chores to now doing everything by myself. As they're like, what? How is this even happening? And the first time I called my mom and I told her, oh, I'm cooking, and she's like, really? Uh, is this edible? Are you okay? So I think they have seen that growth. Also, I think there's a sense of pride. So like if they come and stay at my place, they're really happy that I have a place to myself. I have a car. I would take them to the office and say, hey, like, this is my office, and this is what I'm working on, this is the product. And I would, like, if say a product I worked on is released, I would share that news with my parents that, oh, this came out in the news, and they would say, oh, like, we're so proud. And I think they like how living here has affected me. The opportunities I have, I can tell them, hey, like, I'm going hiking, and I'm out till like 11 p.m. or 12 p.m. and I'm safe. So I think safety has been a very you know good thing for them, where they're like, okay, I see, my daughter is safe, and she has good friends. And I think just seeing that what they sacrifice for, I'm actually getting to live it, I think makes them really happy.
Do they say anything to you about children or put pressure on you in that way?
Uh, I think it comes with being Indian.
Mhm.
I think there is a lot of pressure. I think there are conversations that, hey, like, what is your plan? And I think because I think it's there is a set pattern that everybody expects you to follow, that okay, you've worked x amount of years at your job, now what, like what are you doing with your life, right? What else are you doing? So I think there is definitely pressure. I think that also I think from the generation from which they are from, it was very common to have two kids before you're 30, and that was the norm. So I think just wrapping their head like, oh, what are you saying, that you know that you don't want to think about it, or this is not the right time. So I think it's a struggle. I think I get their perspective, but things have changed. We have so many options now available. And actually having that discussion with your parents and telling them, okay, what are you afraid about, and what are my plans, and what do I want to do. It's not always smooth sailing, but you have to just hold on tight, that okay, this is what I believe in, these are my values, and I will take that pressure. It's okay.
What are you looking forward to in the future? You can be specific or not, but just kind of what are some things that come to mind that you're excited about, or do you wish you could work on?
I think that I've been working on my skill set for these few years. I still think that there is so much more that I need to learn and need to accomplish. I think that I see myself becoming a VP, and and also in a company where I think the when I see that my decisions are affecting so many people and helping them, I think I am still looking out for what that specific, you know, uh, helping people out thing is yet. But I really hope one day I reach that place where I'm like, wow, I built this and I'm seeing the lives that I have changed. So I think that's what I'm excited about.
Is there anything you would like to talk about, or considering young women might be watching this?
Um, I think finding your network. I think I've been talking about this a lot.
Yeah.
And I think your podcast does such a great job, of talking about things that women in different fields go through. So, actively finding podcasts or like support groups and that community that, you create is very helpful. Like if I would have heard a similar conversation like we're having today a few years ago, it would have really empowered me to speak up at that meeting, or ask for that promotion and not wait for somebody to decide that I'm good enough to get that promotion. So you have to find your people, you have to find your sense of that, okay, like this is giving me the confidence to ask for what I deserve. So always be on the lookout for that.
Yeah, I joined a walking group because I needed to exercise and I needed to make friends. And so I found a group on Facebook that it's older women. Every Sunday at like 8 a.m., we walk for 2 hours. And it's been so much fun. Some of them have had businesses, they've just lived so much life. And talking to me about managing children and a career, and you don't need to give up, and there's ways to do it. And, just make sure you do this and that, and believe in yourself, and it's okay to fail. And all those simple things that we just need someone else to tell us sometimes. I really enjoyed that. So yeah, we're always working on ourselves, right?
100%. I think that there have been many moments where I've questioned, oh, what am I doing? And then, I would have my mentor tell me, no, you're doing well. This is not you. Has really made me feel, okay, cool. Somebody understands. And I think we get very focused on, oh, like, I'm doing this or being hard on yourself, and just having somebody else out there telling you, you're doing fine. it's a hard life. Sometimes we have to go through or fight many battles to get to a same place where many men would easily go to. But having somebody say, "Oh, it's okay, you will get there and you are right," and somebody believing in you. So
In your own timeline. We
yeah.
compare ourselves to other people and think, oh, I'm failing. I haven't done this by this time. And it's like, yeah, but I really want to start a business, not like I really want to have kids too, but I want to spend a lot more time on this business.
Right.
And that's okay. That doesn't make me a bad person or like fail as a woman, like, oh, you're not a good woman. And sometimes I feel like that, even though it seems crazy saying, I feel like that a lot.
Yeah, I think definitely there's a lot of pressure that we are supposed to, be a homemaker, but also, contribute to the income, being a good mom, being a good friend, support, your partner. I think there's this monologue in the Barbie movie, and I think that spoke to me so much, where I had tears. I said, yeah, it's so true. That you take a path, and then you have to let go of some things, and that makes you a bad woman. And irrespective of the path you choose, there'll be so many things that you have to let go. And I think just knowing that whatever decision you make in your own timeline, you are okay, and not one thing defines you. And um, don't let anybody tell you that you are less than, because you are not matching up to some ideals that they think is right. I think that's something I really struggled with towards my late 20s, where I would see friends having kids, and I'm like, oh my gosh, why am I so focused on my job? I should be trying to find a partner. And then I would also have women tell me that, it's okay. You are in your life and you have things to accomplish, and you don't have to pause it because, you're seeing other people, choose a different path. And it's okay. When it's your time and when it's right for you, you will make those right choices. So
I think it's so freeing when you can come to that realization that, your timeline is your own, and you don't have to follow anybody else's, and, or even like societal expectations of whether or not you get married and whether or not you have kids and then how many kids you have. And I think sometimes there's pressure to like meet certain expectations. As soon as you can like shed those constraints, you can really like feel very free and to follow your own path.
yeah. I think that freeing is such a right word. I felt like I can breathe, because I can think what I want to do as opposed to what 10 people around me think I should be doing. So I think once you reach that place in your life where you can inherently say, okay, it's my life, it's my timeline. I think there is a switch that flips, and I think then you can really live your life for you, and not what other people think you should be doing.
Mhm. Well, Priyanka, I think you are an inspiration. All that
Yes.
you like, just the fact that you moved across the world and success you're having in your career and how you like so gracefully navigate things in life, I think is, very inspirational to women and to especially to younger women who might be looking at that same path. I think, you can seeing all you've accomplished can really show them that they, other people can do it too.
Yep, I think that was my motivation for being on this podcast. If there's at least one person who can relate and know that a lot of women go through these things, and it's like me trying to give back in my own small way. It was I think it were many women supporting me and who were behind me to get to where I am. And I'm just hoping to do that for somebody else. If it wasn't for my mom or my mentors and, holding me, I wouldn't have done. I think there's this whole saying that behind every successful man, there is a woman. I think in every successive woman, there's a team of so many women who have no idea that they're touching your lives. So I'm a very big proponent of your sisterhood and all the people that bring you together to reach where you are.
Thank you so much. Finish your job and then go work out and talk to your friends and be healthy. And say hi to your mom.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
yeah, thank your parents for being incredible. And we appreciate everything that you shared that they had taught you. That, there's a lot of girls out there that don't have a mom or don't have a great mom. So in you sharing that kind of allowed her to extend her parenting to a lot of other women.
Glad, and my mom will be very happy. So thank you.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. We hope you enjoyed it, and we can't wait to see you next time.